All right, today we're diving into a country that's so massive, people often call it a continent all by itself. We're talking about Brazil.
And when I say massive, I mean it. Check this out, 8.5 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective for you, that's bigger than the entire European Union. It's an absolute giant on the world map.
So that's gotta make you wonder, right? How did one single country end up this huge, covering almost half of South America? And at the same time, how did it grow one of the most vibrant, unique cultures anywhere on Earth? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna figure out. See, Brazil's size isn't just about the land. Its identity is just as huge. It's all woven together from this incredible mix of people, a language that sounds like music, rhythms that make you want to move, and, well, this powerful sense of soul. So today, we're going to unpack the history and the human stories that created this amazing giant. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the land itself. How did Brazil get so big? I mean, where did these borders even come from? As you can imagine, it didn't just happen overnight. Well, the story really kicks off way back in 1494. There was this thing called the Treaty of Tordesillas, and it basically gave Portugal just a little sliver of the coastline. That was it. But then, starting in the 1500s, these really hardcore inland expeditions, the banderas, they just started pushing deeper and deeper into the continent. They were literally redrawing the map. And by the 1700s, Brazil had just exploded way past that original line, claiming the entire heart of South America. And the guys leading these charges, they were called the bandeirantes. You can picture them, these tough-as-nails frontiersmen, mostly coming out of São Paulo. And what's really interesting is that a lot of them were of mixed Portuguese and indigenous heritage themselves. They had a pretty clear mission: find gold and silver and grab as much land as possible for Portugal. Yeah, and this is where their legacy gets complicated. The mission on paper was straightforward: find wealth, expand the empire. But their methods, they were often incredibly brutal. We're talking surprise attacks on villages, enslaving native people. They would even pull tricks like dressing up as Jesuit missionaries to fool people. So you have this paradox. They were builders of a nation, but also destroyers. And here's the real kicker. Think about the rest of Spanish-speaking South America. After independence, it shattered into a ton of different countries. But Brazil, it stayed whole. Why? Because it had a single colonial government and later a single empire holding it all together. That's how this huge chunk of land managed to become one single nation. Okay, so that's the how of Brazil's size. But that's really only half the story, right? To really get Brazil, you have to look at the people. This is where we move from talking about land to talking about the country's soul. At its core, Brazilian culture really stands on three massive foundations. First, you've got the indigenous peoples. Their influence is everywhere, in the language, the food, that deep connection to the land. Then, of course, the Portuguese colonists, who brought their language, their religion, and their way of structuring society. And then, and this is absolutely crucial, the millions of Africans who were brought to Brazil against their will. Their contributions are foundational. The rhythms, the religions like candomblé, the food, and just this incredible strength and resilience that is so central to the Brazilian spirit. And the mixing didn't stop there, not even close. Later on, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, new waves of immigrants started arriving. We're talking people from Italy, Germany, Japan, the Middle East, you name it. They all came and added their own unique colors to this incredible cultural mosaic. This quote just paints such a perfect picture of how this worked. The historian Rachel Mizrahi talks about a part of Rio that people called Little Turkey, and here you had Arab Muslim, Christian, and Jewish families all living together, working side by side. It wasn't about conflict. She says it was a space of respect and cordiality. Just an amazing example of that fusion. And you can still see that legacy of mixing and coexistence today, especially when you look at religion. I mean, sure, Catholicism is still the majority, but you've got this huge and growing Protestant community, plus Spiritism and all sorts of other beliefs, all living together in the same society. So I think the big takeaway here is pretty clear. Brazil doesn't have one culture. It's more like a beautiful harmonization of many cultures. It's this constant fusion that's created something completely new and totally unique in the world. Okay, so we have this incredible cultural fusion, but what does that actually look and sound like? Let's get into some real-world examples, starting with something you can literally hear. Have you ever wondered why Brazilian Portuguese sounds so, well, so musical? It's not your imagination. It's a perfect example of this cultural blend. The basic structure, that's from Portugal. But then it got mixed with all these indigenous words for local plants and animals. And here's the magic ingredient: the rhythms and tonal patterns from African languages. That's what gave it that incredible melody, that signature flow.
And what you get is this language that just feels softer, more melodic, and super expressive. It's a sound that once you hear it, you never forget it. It's instantly recognizable. You can also see this whole story told in Brazil's most famous symbol, its flag. Now, a lot of people think the green is for the Amazon rainforest and the yellow is for gold. Makes sense, right? But the original meaning is actually different. The green and yellow stood for the two imperial families, the House of Braganza and the House of Habsburg, whose marriage basically helped unify the country. Okay, now look at the middle of the flag. That blue circle with the stars, that's not just some random design. It is an actual star chart of the sky over Rio de Janeiro on one specific night, November 15th, 1889. That was the very moment the Republic was declared, and every single star represents one of Brazil's states. How cool is that? And right there, written across that starry sky, you see the national motto, Ordem e Progresso, which means order and progress. It was like a mission statement for the new republic, this dream of a unified, modern country always moving forward. But, beyond all that official history, the flag has taken on this whole other life around the world. When you see those colors, what do you think of? For most people, it's joy, it's samba, it's unbelievable football, and it's the warmth of the Brazilian people. It's become a symbol not just of a country, but of a feeling. So, after all that, what's the big picture? What does this all tell us? I think Brazil's story really shows us that a country is so much more than just lines on a map. It's a feeling, it's an energy, it's this incredible experience that's been built up over centuries of different cultures coming together, this unbelievable creativity, and a deep, powerful resilience. So you have this giant country with an even bigger cultural soul, and it kind of leaves you with this one powerful question to think about. What happens when a nation's greatest resource isn't what you can pull from the ground, but what comes from the heart and spirit of its people?